Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gradcracker Webinar series today. I'm very excited to be joined by our good friends at the Royal Air Force. Gradcracker has a long history of working with the RAF. I'm lucky enough to have worked with them since they joined Gradcracker nearly 8 years ago. Today's modern day RAF is the UK's aerial peacekeeping and fighting force. The Royal Air Force performs a wide range of duties to serve and protect the UK and the world. Joining as a graduate, you'll get much more than just a job. You'll have the opportunity to travel the world and create lifelong friendships. Life in the RAF is a unique experience, so let's find out more. Firstly, I want to introduce you all to our guest speakers. So firstly, we have Wing Commander Manjeet Gatora. Then we have Flight Lieutenant Abby Addison, Flight Lieutenant Carl Keynes, and Flight Lieutenant Mark Daly.
Hello.
Hello. Mark, starting with you, please can you give the audience an insight into today's modern day RAF?
Yeah, so like you just said there, so the modern day RAF is a peacekeeping and also war fighters in time of crisis. It gives the government of the UK options in a time of need, but mainly there's jobs available that people can apply for in all different sorts of professions and career roles, but the backbone of that really is the engineers, and nearly half of the people within the RAF are engineers of some sort across many trades and specialisations, and the people who lead them are the officers, they're the leaders, the managers. So it's those sorts of people that we're looking for to lead our engineers and get that cutting edge technology that we work with and that we have as part of the UK's response to the time and crisis, to be able to get up when we need it, 24/7, 365 days a year.
Yes, 100%. Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. And Mark, could you tell the audience a bit about your role in the RAF?
Yeah, so as a background, I'm an engineer, aero systems, so that's looking after the airworthiness of aircraft. But currently I'm in what we call a staff role, so that's a bit of a step away from your normal day-to-day role and going into a role where you can be doing sort of staff work. That's not engineering. So I'm in recruitment at the minute. So I work in a specialist recruitment team looking for tomorrow's engineers and cyberspace professionals. So I work in recruitment selection within the RAF at Cranwell in Lincolnshire, where we recruit everyone that's going into the RAF.
Fantastic. And there is so much change happening at the RAF, isn't there? You are, changing kind of the areas, going a lot more into cyberspace, which is really exciting. So you're recruiting from a breadth of, different kind of STEM disciplines, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have to keep up with whatever the technology of today is and the technology of tomorrow, constantly changing, constantly trying to keep on that front foot. As you say, things are changing all the time. Just to put it into context, we've now got a space command down at RAF High Wycombe. So I know a lot of people are probably aware of the American style space command that's been about, but yeah, we've also got one in the RAF and always looking at that, how we can be better and react better.
100%. It's exciting. So before we go into more detail with the panel, Mark, can you please give the audience an overview of the current opportunities that you'll have up on the Gradcracker Hub?
Okay, yeah, so Gradcracker Hub, so we use Gradcracker because we are after graduates who are studying engineering and computer sciences. And with that, we've got two sort of roles that we employ for. We've got the engineer aero systems. These are your people who study in engineering so general engineering or aero systems engineering. And then we've also got our engineers communication electronics. These are your IT, software, computer science. Both fall under different areas, one in engineering, one in cyberspace. Currently recruiting are the engineer communication electronics. That's recruiting now for jobs next year. And also we've got sponsorship of both the engineer aero systems and communication electronics, and that's open to both of the roles. So you can either, if you've got a graduate degree, apply directly for communication electronics, or if you're in early stages of your university, you can apply to be sponsored through university.
Brilliant. Do you want to talk a bit more about the bursary scheme, Mark, and for any students that maybe are in their first year at university thinking, how do I get involved in that, what they need to do?
Yeah, so if you are interested and you are in your first year, we're currently recruiting people for the sponsorship to be for the graduates in 2025. So like I said, you've got to be in your first year or about to start university. How you apply is you go to the RAF recruitment website. You can go through the Gradcracker site to get there, and that's where you can read more about the sponsorship schemes and also apply directly to the RAF.
Brilliant. Yeah, so definitely go and have a look. Any of the audience watching today, get on Gradcracker, have a look at these opportunities, and start to discover the opportunities that are on there. So I want to kick things off and find out a bit more about what life is like in the RAF and why it's no ordinary job. So Manjeet, I'm going to come to you. Can you tell us and the audience why life in the RAF is no ordinary job?
Oh my God, where do I start? So I mean, my career, I think I'm probably the oldest person here by a long way, but in 2 weeks' time, that'll be 23 years for me. So, I joined up straight after university, and I've done so many different roles, but the roles I've done would be impossible. They're nothing like anybody who I left university with. We always talk about, what have you done today? And I'll turn around and say, oh God, I'm deployed out in Oman or something like that, supporting our aircraft, which are flying into possibly at that time, Afghanistan or wherever. Yeah. And I'd talk to them and they'd be saying, oh, right, I've got an office job, or, they've done really good degrees. They've done like physics degrees and things like that. But their jobs are no way as exciting as what we get to do. And the thing is, sometimes we take it for granted. So these opportunities to talk to people about what we actually get to do is really, really important, because sometimes we really, really forget how important our jobs are, or how amazing they are. So my last command job, I was in charge of the fleet of the UK's 8 C-17 aircraft. And people will remember that aircraft because it repatriated the Queen from Scotland back down to London. And that was my old squadron. I was so proud. And there's so many different opportunities like that where my job has been on the news and things like that, but we've just taken it for granted. And then that's not even considering the other aspects, such as the adventurous training and the sport that we get to do. I hate deep water. I'm a rubbish swimmer. And one of my colleagues turned around and said, "Do you fancy going scuba diving?" And I'm saying, "You're joking." And 7 months later, I'm 40 meters down in the waters of Ascension Islands, and you just can't get things like that. And that's just scratching the surface,
Yeah, 100%. So Manjeet, if you don't mind me asking, where did you go to university and what did you study?
So I wasn't doing any engineering related A levels at the time, and my background is my father was in the Air Force, and we moved around a bit. So my sort of GCSE A-level education was messed up a little bit. So I joined late and I ended up, so what happened was I actually joined cadets, and I wanted to join up as a technician in the Air Force. And then I joined cadets and realized, hang on a second, if I study a bit harder, I can actually go in as an officer. And that sort of clicked something in my head. So I ended up doing aerospace engineering at University of Hertfordshire. And I managed to go through there. I did a year out, which I think is absolutely still the right thing to do a year out. And then I joined up as an engineering officer back in '99. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you haven't looked back since?
But I genuinely haven't. I used to say, we used to joke with my friends, if you're not enjoying a job, don't do it. And like I say, it's been 23 years and there's no reason for me to leave now, because I can see the up arrows of different opportunities. It's changed a lot in that time, but the technology we have now and the aircraft and things like that are coming in and that we have is step change, really. And at the end of the day, I'm serving my country as well, and people shouldn't forget that either, So there may be jobs out there which pay more, but they won't be serving your country and doing something for the nation and quite frankly, the world sometimes, looking at some of the humanitarian operations that we've done and things.
Exactly, 100%. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Abby, coming to you next. Same kind of question. Why is life in the RAF no ordinary job for you?
Hi there. So for me, I think the biggest part that's really sets the services or any of the mod apart is that lifestyle piece that you have. It's not just a job. Throughout my career, I've actually joined about 16 years ago now on a bursary scheme. So I was sponsored the whole way through university. So that's exactly half my life, not half my adult life, half my life. I've been in and around the airport, and absolutely brilliant. So for me, it's that lifestyle piece. It's not just a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 job. There are so many other aspects of life that you can get involved with when you're in the Royal Air Force. Firstly, now that I have a family, and the Air Force family is a really big part of the offer for me. We have nurseries and things on the RAF camps, on most RAF camps that we are based at, which means I can easily fit family around service life. But when I was younger and in university and just joining, the social scene of the Royal Air Force, we celebrate a lot of historic events in the Royal Air Force, and we have key functions throughout the year. We have receptions in the summer where we bring the local community in, and we get an opportunity to wear our lovely evening dress uniform as well, and interact with the community. We also have functions where we have big formal dinners, and we celebrate really key moments in history for the Royal Air Force and for the other services as well. We have things like a branch conference every year where we talk about what's going on in the wider engineer branch, but also in the wider engineering world in general. It's a really great opportunity to bring lots of people together, people that you would have maybe worked with previously in your career that you haven't seen for a long time. You can bring them back together. Another part of that for me, coming on from the lifestyle, is the friends that you make. You meet people and you go through really intense experiences, for example, training courses with them, or you go and you're deployed overseas on humanitarian missions, or you're deployed on operational missions with groups of people, and you form teams and you form bonds with them really quickly in a situation where you possibly wouldn't in any other role. The friends that I've made so far are friends for life. One of the girls who I met on a train ride when I was 16 years old, going for my interview whether I was going to get into a college bursary scheme, which we were both successful for.
Yeah.
She was one of my bridesmaids.
Oh.
She's still a serving officer in the Air Force as well. We're both engineer officers, and we're both the godmothers to each other's children. So these bonds that you form with individual people, that they run through, and they are friends for life. I know I could walk onto an RAF base in different parts of the country and probably see someone that I've either worked with or know. So for me, it runs really quite deeply. It becomes when you serve and you serve your country, it forms it sits quite deeply within you, and it becomes a big part of who you are.
Oh my
God!
Monday to Friday. It is so fascinating, and it's so nice to hear that, because I think we're going to talk about it a bit later on, but like the misconceptions of what life actually in the military is like, and that is just a lovely way of putting it. So thank you so much, Abby. Carl, come to you next. Again, same question: why for you in the RAF is no honor job?
Hello, good afternoon. I've just realised the Wing Commander, I joined up on the same day, I think. I've been in 23 years in 2 weeks' time, but I went to IF Fulton. So I joined up as an avionics technician and commissioned later on during my career. But I can reflect and take point of what's already been said. It's not an ordinary job at all, even though to us it's a job you go 9 to 5, or some actually quite a lot. It's not 9 to 5 really, but you go to work and you do your stuff and you go home. But it's not until you talk to family and friends or even neighbours, and you sort of allude what you've been doing, and people are just fascinated, because there's not many people around where I live that do what I've done and what I've experienced, and that's thank you to the Royal Air Force. I think a majority of my career I've been on squadrons. So I remember once as a young what we used to be known as SACs. I was an SAC and I was stuck in the traffic on the M25, thinking, I've got to go to work and everyone else is stuck in this traffic. But I found myself smiling, because I thought, who else is in this traffic jam wanting to go to work? I was going to be going, it was a Monday, I was going to be going on a night shift, but I was living my dream. I joined up work on helicopters, and I was driving to Benson to work on Merlins. So that, I think, highlights it's not an ordinary job. It's fantastic, and it's full of surprises. This year I was getting ready to finish my tour on 18 Squadron, just pretty much packing up my desk, packing up my locker. Then the Sango, the senior engineering officer, come through and said, "Do you mind travelling east with a couple of Chinooks? We need to send you now, pretty much. Can you prep the aircraft and go?" And again, that's a fine example. It's not an ordinary job at all. And before I knew it, I had a few Chinooks, a bunch of aircrew, loads of spare parts and tools travelling east for the army. It was fantastic. Yeah. And friends for life. I can totally relate with that. Just a month and a half ago, Merlin's no longer in the RAF. However, there's a strong Merlin community still in the RAF because we've been employed elsewhere throughout. Those aircraft transferred to the Royal Navy. But yeah, in September, end of, about 100 of us met up in Trafalgar Square for a reunion. And some of these people are just, they're the best friends you could ever wish for. And some of them you don't see for a long time, but you talk as if you saw each other yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's immensely special.
True friends, yeah.
Yeah, true friends. And that's why it's no ordinary job from Cole's view.
Brilliant. Well done, Carl. I love that as well. And Mark, last but not least, how can you top that?
I don't think I can really. I suppose I could touch on a few points that people have made. Like Abby said, you'll be walking around a base and bump into people. I bumped into Abby the other week at the swimming pool at Cranwell's. And kind of double take. I thought, I know you from somewhere. So yeah, but yeah, I joined up. I joined up in 2009, and I can remember I turned around to my mum and I said, I've got a 9-year contract. I'm going to the World Cup in Russia in 2018. That was my goal, to save up some money and go to the World Cup, and I'll be out. And I did nearly leave. I nearly left. When was it? After about 6 or 7 years. I'm so glad I didn't now. I really am, because it just gives you, like people said, you've got the adventure training, the sport. You can, granted, it's not all rainbows and butterflies all the time. There are low points. You'll be away from your family and stuff like that. But it's up and down. Whereas I know there's not that many people that go to work and love their job. I wish everyone loved their job. There's not that many people, and I see most people go to work and it's just something they see that they have to do, and it's kind of like mundane every day. This is the same. Whereas we go to work, we'll have those low points like everyone else, but most of the time we've got high points. If we go into work one week, we'll be doing one thing. Next week we'll be going, well, do you know what? This opportunity to come up, go away a week for skiing, all within work's time, work's paying for it. Let's go do that. Let's get the morale up a bit. You go back into work, and then, like Cole said, another opportunity comes up at work, so you're not doing the same thing every day. Yeah. It's like I say, it does have its low points as commitment, but it doesn't every job. I can't name many other jobs. I was going to say the Army and Navy, but we don't want to give them any credit on the RAF webinar. That give you those highs that we do, really. So yeah.
Brilliant. Next, I want to talk a bit about why you joined. And Manjeet, I know you kind of covered that a bit, in terms of for your personal experience, with your parents and things. Any other thing you wanted to add to that on really why you wanted to join?
Okay, if you really want to know why I joined, and the reality is that I mentor quite a few people as well who want to join. And I always ask them exactly the same question. Because it is no ordinary job, it should be a little bit difficult to get into as well. Okay, so you must have a really solid reason why you want to. And I always tell people, if they don't have it, to go away and think about it and come back again. And for me, I'd grown up. So my father served for 28 years with the Air Force, and I sort of grew up with it and grew up around it. But the reality is that I remember, and this is going back, and I suppose, Carl, you're the only one who remember this then, is back in the 80s. So we're talking Ethiopian famine. Okay, and it was the C-130 Hercules that was, I remember watching on Blue Peter, and seeing this big aircraft dropping relief aid out the back of it to all the starving children and people in Ethiopia. And I genuinely said, right, I want to be part of that organization. And then fast forward, God knows how many years, and especially the humanitarian pieces that we did and evacuation pieces we did with C-17, it sort of came full circle. So it's putting shivers down my spine now, because that's what it meant to me to join up, is the fact that it means to be something more than just about the money and things like that some people are motivated by. But yeah, it was Ethiopia, seeing C-130s dropping humanitarian aid and saving people.
Thank God you did see that, because then they're here now and doing it, and saving and helping and on that journey, which is incredible. Abby, similar question to you, if that's okay. Why, and more so you in terms of your bursary scheme, and how did that initially attract you?
So unlike Manjeet, I was from a completely non-military family. The last military association with my family, I think, was Second World War. So I didn't really have a family legacy to go on. However, when I was in secondary school, halfway through secondary school, I joined my local Air Cadet Squadron. And I was from quite a big city, from Southampton, so we were quite lucky in the fact that my Air Cadet Squadron was in a really big 3-storey building in the centre of the city, which was also an aircraft museum, handily as well. And there were lots and lots of people from all across the city that came there, from 13 years to 18 years as cadets, and then older people as well that were doing the staff work there. And I went to a really big school as well, and I had a good circle of friends at school. But the network which I joined when I joined the Air Cadet Squadron, and we would go on a Tuesday and a Thursday for after school in the evenings. The people that I met there, I just met people from all across the city and really quite far away, because considering my bounds were just the city before. And I thought, wow, there's just so much more to life than the same people I see at school every day. When I was involved with the Air Cadets, I went there, as I say, a couple of nights a week, which was brilliant. I started to do lots of weekend activities as well. We started to do lots of activities and sports, and we would essentially have competitions between the other cities around the county. And then I got quite into the netball team and the hockey team, and got to go and play on behalf of my county against other counties, which was great. We got involved in lots and lots of military activities. So drill, which was really good, learning how to prepare uniform. And I've always liked to be like quite smart and neatly turned out. So that really chimed with me, to be honest. And we had it was kind of similar to Scouts. Air Cadets have a brevet that you wear, sorry, a lanyard that you wear on your arm, and you can gather badges for different achievements that you've done. And that really chimed with my personality as well. I had, outside of school, I had something that was developing me in a completely different way and showing me experiences that I've never had before. I did things like first aid that we'd never really covered in school, learned things about military history, about aircraft. And as I'd been at the Air Cadets about a year, I started to experience flying as well. We went to a base probably about half an hour away, and I got to go on something called air experience flights in the Tutors, which is a 2-seater propeller aircraft. And it was the first time I've been flying outside of going on holiday. And you think you're there at 5,000 feet doing aerobatics. I was a 16-year-old with a really retired Air Force pilot who was doing it as a voluntary activity. And I thought, this is absolutely incredible. We're doing aerobatics. We're literally doing loops in the sky on a Sunday afternoon. And that first feeling of flight for me was just what got me absolutely hooked. And thankfully, I've got to spend my entire career to date in and around the aviation environment, essentially. Everything that goes with the aviation environment, and the smell of like aviation fuel, being in that like mechanical based environment and being hands-on with the aircraft.
Yeah, brilliant.
So from Air Cadets, I did a couple of years there, and the person who was running the squadron at the time suggested I might like to go for a bursary scheme. And I was really lucky and worked really hard at school and got good grades, and I was successful on a bursary scheme, which back in my day, it was a residential scheme, and you went to study for your sixth form. Unfortunately, that scheme's closed down now. We're doing something slightly different. We still offer bursaries throughout the course of your university time, and you can apply if you're at any university in the UK. Those bursary applications are open now on the Gradcracker Live Hub, which I've been reliably informed. So for me, the Air Force sponsored 5 years of my formative education, the whole way through college and university, and then I joined the Air Force full time as soon as I'd graduated. So the Air Force was there for me every step of the way. It opened my eyes to all the different opportunities and things that you could do, skills that you could practice and skills that you could develop. It took me from a normal school person to a person with a really vast set of skills and interests. I've met people that I never thought I would meet, and I could do things that I never would have been exposed to before. So
amazing. And it almost sounds like a no-brainer not to join, the bursary scheme. So why not? Why not get that security at the end of it, and get that training whilst you're learning. Carl, come to you next. Same kind of question. Why the RAF?
So I was a young lad who grew up in Dover. So there's some very strong links to Dover due to the Battle of Britain. So that's a place you can live, and and it can capture your imagination. As soon as I could in the 90s, early 90s, no, I don't look that old, but I joined the Air Cadets. And again, I won't repeat what Abby said, but there was just so many opportunities there, and you get a good insight to the Royal Air Force. The first time I ever flew in an aeroplane, it was a Chipmunk at RAF Leman, and I thought it was fantastic. What an opportunity. And then I regularly went to RAF Manston to carry on those flying experiences in gliders as well. I stayed in the Air Cadets, and then the only reason I left, because I joined the Territorial Army, the Reserve Army, when I started my A-levels. So I was very interested in joining the military. I knew that's where my future was going to be. So it was quite a unique opportunity in Dover. There was a TA centre, so which was infantry. So I always thought I'd join the RAF. However, I could learn some military skills while I was also studying for my A-levels. Because of that, I nearly ended up in the infantry, I must say, because there's an opportunity to transfer from the Reserve Army to the regular, and I absolutely loved it. But I had some career advice from an uncle and a sergeant from the regular army. So look, stick on the path you started and get a trade, and that was fantastic advice. And here I am. I'm in the RAF, and I carried on that journey. I went to Horton 1999 after completing 3 A-levels in maths, chemistry and geography. Pretty much took a year out because I decided not to go to university. I was doing quite a lot with the army. But yeah, I joined a year after doing my A-levels. And I must admit, the Territorial Army and the Air Cadets prepared me quite well for a career that, if you count the Territorial Army, actually, a career that's nearly 26 years old now. And that's how I joined.
It's kind of going to lead me to your question, Mark. I'm going to ask you a slightly different one. If a student is listening now and they're not part of any of this, not part of Air Cadets, anything else, and the thought, oh, but I like this bursary scheme, I want to get involved, it's not too late at this point, is that you don't have to be part of the Air Cadets or anything like that to be involved in the bursary scheme or an engineering officer?
Well, so Air Cadets, I was never part of the Air Cadets. I never wanted to be part of the Air Cadets. My brother was. It just never interested me. I was too busy kicking a bag of wind around the football pitch. I was nowhere near good enough. So I should have tried harder at school. But you're right. You don't need to be part of the Air Cadets. It's just a coincidence that the 3 people on here all did, and also enjoyed it so much that they've carried on. If you do want to go through the bursary scheme, you will have to join the University Air Squadrons. There's University Air Squadrons all around the country. So we say to people, get to university, join university, join your University Air Squadron, and then that's when you can start applying for your bursary. If you're not going for a bursary, again, no requirements. It may help you, like Manjeet said earlier, we are picking the best of the best when it comes to our officers, and you will go through a selection process. And why wouldn't you try and get your foot in the door a little bit and get that sort of a knowledge of the Air Force and a bit of air power to try and help you on the way? And like Abby and Carl said, there's those opportunities to go flying and things like that. I went up in a glider whilst in the Air Force, and we were not doing the loops. I would not let them. It was level for me. It had no engine, so keep it going forward, please. So yeah, you're right. There's no prerequisite with Air Cadets, but if you want this bursary, the sponsorship, and University Air Squadrons.
Perfect. Good shout. Thank you for that. Sophie, I think I'm going to hand over to you now. Talk a bit more about the roles.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Well, it's been amazing hearing about your lives so far. But what I want to do now is kind of talk a little bit more about day to day. What do you do? What is your actual current role? What sort of things have you been involved in? I know we've heard like little snippets of bits so far, but Manjeet, could you tell us a little bit about your current role in the RAF? Okay,
it's not engineering. Okay, so don't shoot me down for that. But so, and this is a really important point as well. So as you get higher up in the rank structure, it means that you can do different things as well. So although I've been an engineer, and I've been lucky enough to do both sides. So we mentioned the communications and the aircraft side. Mm-hmm. So sort of the first 2/3 of my career has been either one of those. So working on aircraft, but also supporting the the airfield navigation aids out in Bastion and doing all sorts of fun stuff. Mm-hmm. But just recently, I've actually been out in Bosnia doing a plans job, which has got nothing really to do with engineering. And when I came back again, they said, with your previous background, because I used to be the engineering branch advisor, the professions advisor, and all the fact that you've got so many contacts everywhere, do you fancy going into a communications role, as in media communications? So that's where I sit now, bizarrely. So I do help out with the recruitment side now and again. So we look at ethnic minority recruitment. So as the senior Sikh in the armed forces, I get dragged around to those different events. But in my day-to-day role now, I do internal comms. So it's sort of the you could call it the sort of lesser brother of, communications, as in my colleagues get to do all the exercises and operations. But the reality is that doesn't really transpire. So if you think about the evacuation of Afghanistan last year, my job was, instead of just doing internal comms, I was sitting down at Bryce Norton talking to the BBC and Sky News crews whilst the aircraft are coming in and the people are coming in. It was my job to make sure everybody was getting the right shots and not taking the wrong shots and doing all that sort of stuff. Just today, so I'm trying to sort out now the chief of the air staff, so the head person of the Air Force. I'm trying to sort out he's going to have a whole force dial-in, so I get to engage with him directly and turn around and say, right, sir, what do you want to say? Right, we're going to sort this out. What are the themes and topics that you want to do? But also anything at all that's happening in the Air Force. It's a fascinating job. It's almost like an ops job, because of the communication side, whatever's happening in the Air Force, we need to know about it first. So it's absolutely fascinating, because we sometimes don't know what's coming in. Just recently, the latest story that we pushed out yesterday was all about the Air Force Cross that was awarded to one of the 47 Squadron pilots. Again, nothing to do with internal comms, but because of my background and connections with Bryce Norton, I know who to talk to. And it's like, that's such a nice story. What did he do? Let's go and find out about it and push that through. So so day-to-day internal comms. At the moment, we're working, although we're based at Headquarters Air Command, because of COVID and everything, we have sort of flexible working. So I go in 3 days a week and work from home for a few days a week as well. But because of the IT systems that we've been given, that's not a problem anymore. So yeah, very
fantastic.
Flexible.
Wow. And how long have you been in this current role?
2 years. So just less short of 1 year to go. And I think we mentioned Space Command there. So because of the position I'm in, I'm a wing commander, I become a little bit more of a generalist. I can pick and choose what I want. But what I always do at the end of each of my tours, I'm looking at my next, not just my next appointment, but also where can I go, what we call out of area. So where can I get deployed to? And this is just my own personal thing about, I joined up not just to do a day-to-day job, but I joined up to deploy. So I've got a couple of medals and things, but it's because that's what I joined up for. I want to deploy, I want to serve elsewhere. And, I'm now looking at opportunities to finish my tour off and then deploy somewhere for 6 months before I come back. And I'm really looking at Space Command, because I think that's a massive opportunity there. So I'll be looking at potentially looking there, or going down into what we call MOD main building, into London and doing some more jobs down there. But it kind of opens up, as wing commander and above, it opens up to what you can do. It's not just engineering.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point about, how the reasons you joined up and what you wanted to get out of your career. You've been able to kind of lead that, and you've been able to have those conversations and decide kind of, now you've got to that level, these are the types of things that I'm really interested in.
And that conversation and the direction. So I brief all the new, especially the engineering officers coming through, because when I joined up, it was very much of this is what we call them desk officers or career managers. This is what you're going to be doing next. But now I absolutely positively encourage them. No. Right, especially the next generation coming through. They're far more savvy than I ever was. But make sure plan your career out 1, 2, 3 tours ahead and make it happen. Have that dialogue with your career managers, and you can do that. You're not going to get just pushed into, right, go and do that job in that place now. You can negotiate that with your career managers a lot more than you could 20 years ago. Yeah,
I think that's brilliant advice, and I think it's absolutely right. And it's nice to hear that that's a two-way conversation now. And these engineers coming in, you really do have a huge amount of opportunity. We've heard about just from 3 people in the RAF so far, the amazing journeys that you've had and all the various different things that you've done. So I think that's really good advice, Manjeet, to the people watching now that are hopefully going to go on to apply to the vacancies, to think about how they could shape their career and even start, you know, using the Gradcracker Company Hub, listening to your journeys to think about what they might want to do within the RAF. So yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Abby, I'm going to come back to you now. Could you tell us a little bit more about your current role?
So my answer to that question is also one of my favourite things about life in the Royal Air Force, because ever since I graduated university at 21 and then got through my training and started my full-time role when I was 22, 23, I've been able to give a different answer to that question every couple of years.
Yeah.
As Manjeet referenced, we move around in the Air Force. And there is also the opportunity to stay in one place. For example, Lincolnshire's got lots of different Air Force jobs. You could spend quite a few years here. But on the whole, every 3 or so years, you would move around as an officer in different roles. In my early career, I did some very hands-on engineering, working with aircraft, the Hercules aircraft that we were talking about earlier. And I was working with vehicles. I was in charge of big groups of people, big teams of up to 100, 120 people, and technicians that look after the mechanical systems, the engine systems and the electronic systems on board these different types of vehicles and different types of aircraft. I've also had some time overseas as well. A couple of jobs ago now, I took 3 years out of the Royal Air Force, some time on maternity leave and some time on a career break. My husband, who's also a serving engineer officer in the Air Force, he got the job down in Munich in South Germany. And I went down there and we had our family down there, which was an absolutely incredible opportunity. And it's a really important point for me to draw out, actually, because the Air Force has an absolutely incredible family support package. And a part of that is really, really good maternity care. And as a graduate and many other 18, 19, 20-year-olds listening to this conference, you probably won't think it's important right now, but believe me, it comes around really quickly. I had my first child when I was 28 years old. So that was actually only really after a couple of years of service. But other huge global companies like GE, for example, which are arguably a competitive employer for engineers, engineer managers, they're not a patch on the Air Force's maternity package, and certainly not on the family offer with the provision of accommodation and wraparound childcare and nurseries and things like that. So going back to answer your question, my favourite thing about the answer to that question is my job changes every couple of years. I've lived in lots of different places up and down the country, even lived 3 years overseas. My role immediately before, because I've just changed roles at the moment, immediately before was another hands-on engineering job as well, on the Red Arrows, which many people have enjoyed Red Arrows displays throughout the summers in the UK. And I was there looking after a small team of 8 engineers and the pilots, and we moved around the country, and we did a bit of European displays over the course of the summer as well. That was really hands-on engineering, physically fixing and cleaning the aircraft in between each of the displays, and indeed flying in them. I've just changed to a role within our headquarters department down at High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. And I'm now on a team that is responsible for delivering a bit of a transformation project. So the Air Force is always got an eye on the future, and it's looking to compare itself to other employers, because retaining people is really, really important to us, but also making sure that we have a really modern offer and we are aligned with other employers as well. It's really important. So we've gone through a bit of a transformation of how we internally manage our professions and how we deal with people's roles. So I'm on a team now where we're delivering that internally within the Royal Air Force. I'm doing things like going on road shows to all the different RAF bases, catching up with friends across the UK, and delivering briefings about what my team is doing. We're also delivering briefings about the projects that we've got going on, for example, how to become an incorporated engineer or a chartered engineer, because professional development is really important as well. So my role now has moved away from that frontline hands-on engineering where I'm physically touching the aircraft and flying in the aircraft, to a headquarters staff role. And that's the beauty of life in the service as well. Those are actually standalone careers and professions outside the Royal Air Force. You would be a physical hands-on engineer, and that's what you would do. You would work with British Airways and you would work at Heathrow in their hub and that's what you would do for your whole career, you wouldn't have the opportunity to move around. Something that's really important to the Air Force is developing people professionally, as I mentioned, with the professional registrations and incorporated engineer, chartered engineer, engineering technician with these nationally and internationally recognized bodies. Mm-hmm. But it's also important to the Air Force to develop people and give them breadth and in their career as well. So you have Fantastic. Roles that look at our business and our operations from the highest headquarters level and from the squadron level, where you're day in, day out flying and dealing with the aircraft and equipment.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think you've just touched upon so many different points that is, but really important. I mean, I love what you were saying about, the support that you get, from maternity, family, and the fact that as a graduate, you probably don't think about that straight away. But you said,
I didn't.
I didn't.
In the future, that's when I'm a real grown up. But I think 6.5 years out of training, and I was going on maternity leave because it comes around quicker than you think.
It really does. I mean, I had my first daughter last year, so I know it comes around really, really quickly. And you don't really understand how important those aspects and having, being able to go to work and having a nursery or wraparound care, that sort of thing on site, is really, really important. And I think our audience really do need to understand, at this early stage, you do need to be thinking long term, especially if you're joining somewhere like the RAF and all the stories that we've heard so far, where, it's a lifelong career. You could have an amazing career here, and all of these things play into that. So it's definitely worth looking at that sort of thing as a graduate. And then everything you were saying about, the breadth of career opportunities that you've had just so far in your career. It's just fantastic to hear, and it's really good for our audience to get an understanding of, okay, yes, I can be a hands-on engineer, but I actually do have the opportunity to then go into a more business strategic role as well, and it's not all working on the ground. So thank you very much for that, Abby. Carl, I'm going to come to you. Same sort of question. What are you currently doing at the RAF? What's your role?
So I've had a career of fixing aircraft, really, and being in the aircraft environment. But what I'm working on now, I'm within the career management HQ command at High Wycombe. So my role is to work with the career manager and also the EPAT, the Engineering Profession Advisory Team, to create the jobs for tomorrow and to formalise the jobs we've got now. As it's been mentioned, the RAF is and our environment and the world environment is continuously evolving through technology, various activities or events around the world. So we need to have people in the correct positions, providing the output we require. So that's what I've been doing since April, working with both of those bodies, engaging with many stakeholders across the Royal Air Force, near enough every station, staffing and creating the jobs for tomorrow. And so it's worthy of note as well, actually, Tri-Service. So even though Royal Air Force, we're talking about Royal Air Force, we work with our sister services too. So as one example, to gain experience for the Tri-Service and to gain our knowledge on the Army and Navy, I've created jobs with the Army at Watchesham. So we have Royal Air Force personnel at Watchesham working with the Apaches, and I've created jobs in the Navy at Yeovilton and Cold Rose. So when we deploy, you can end up working with your sister services near enough every time. When I've been to Iraq, Bosnia, Afghanistan, all these places, the Army and Navy's always been there. So understanding how they operate, and for them to understand how we operate as well, is crucial. So it's been really, it's one of the highlights of my career. 23 years, this position's been quite, it's a privilege, really, having such an impact on the RAF of today, but more so tomorrow. So that's what's been keeping me busy for the last 7 months.
It sounds it. Oh, well, I'm going to stay with you, Carl, to kind of go back to some of the points that we've heard a little bit about. But we know that work-life balance is really, really important. And it can be a kind of common misconception that life in the military doesn't allow you to have that sort of any sort of normal home life. And listening to you all talk, where you've been and where you've been based and moving around X, Y, and Z. What are your experiences of having kind of a normal life outside of the RAF since you've been part of the RAF?
Well, I've been away a lot. I've been on operational squadrons, and we have. And I've particularly spent quite a lot of time away from home, but that's why a lot of us join. The Wing Commander mentioned earlier on, he's joined to go and deploy and see stuff and gain experiences. So I've done that. I think I've I think I've visited, and some of them stayed quite some time, but 50 countries whilst I've been in the RAF. I was a GE, so I flew around, and there was a few day stops there, but other countries I've spent quite a lot of months in. But even though the career has been extremely busy, I've been able to find that balance. I don't mind sharing this. My wife and I, we adopted our daughter. And to do that, when I was at Benson on a very busy helicopter squadron, for the squadron and the Royal Air Force to provide me the time I needed to go through that process, considering we were heavily committed to the Middle East, it's the best advert. And even though we were really busy, the Royal Air Force gave me 6 months leave to form an attachment with the little girl we adopted. So the balance, if it's needed and it's there, the RAF will do its utmost to provide the goods. You miss birthdays, anniversaries, Christmases, and what have you. But again, it's not an ordinary job, is it? So,
no.
it goes back to that, really. But it can be a challenge. However, the service is there to support you, and if you need to get home, or there's a certain event or something in your calendar you need to be home for, the service and your chain of command do the utmost to make sure you make that appointment.
No, that's lovely. I think that's a really nice thing that you kind of touched upon there with the support that you've had personally, but also, you know, that if you're joining a career like the RAF, you kind of have to be that sort of person that understands that there is going to be that time away and there is going to be X, Y, and Z. But it sounds that you get so much support, and like you said, if there's something that you really need to be there for, you'll be supported to do that. And if there's things in your life where you need extra time, you're supported to do that. So I think it's having that two sides, isn't it, of knowing what you're going into, but also knowing that you're going to have the support when needed. So thank you for that, Carl. Manjeet, I'm going to kind of touch upon your experiences there as well, because I know you said that was why you wanted to join the RAF. You wanted to be here, there, and everywhere. So how has that kind of played into your kind of work-life balance, if you like?
I'm probably a bad example, if I'm totally honest with you, because I'm coming up to nearly 49 now, and I only bought my first house sort of 5 years ago, but that's because the Air Force always allowed me to live in wherever I was. I was always living in an officer's mess somewhere, so they provided accommodation. So it meant that I had the flexibility. I didn't have to worry about where I was going to live. So you still have to pay for it, but it's subsidised rates. And even when I was posted down into Bristol as well, where we do our support organisations and things down there, engineering support, and they provided a flat. And so I never had to worry about accommodation. So I never really put my roots down anywhere. And what's happened is that when I was growing up, we had lots of different bases in lots of different locations. So the joke was that you did the Lincolnshire tour because there were so many bases around Lincolnshire, but over the years they've now closed down. So we've almost just got super bases everywhere.
Okay.
But the Air Force recognises that we can't move somebody right from Bryce Norton all the way up to Lossiemouth and north of Scotland overnight and things like that. So our careers have changed now so that you can spend more time in one location. Absolutely, definitely. So my work-life balance, this is now probably the 4th different role I've done at Headquarters Air Command, but they're all completely different. But the service has allowed me to actually put my roots down in a local area, so now I can stay here. But and like I say, the offset is that we do have to go away, but that's something personally I joined up to doing. And most of my out of area appointments have always been extended for one reason or another. So but then again, I don't mind that, because you're doing it for service needs. It's not because it's not personal, it's always because of service needs. And my extension out in Bosnia, because of COVID, no one could stop that. But it's one of those things that you just go and do, and you need to have people around you that understand that. For me, it's great, and I love doing it. It's the opportunity. It is a bit of a thrill. Absolutely, it is. Going to see those different places. It is absolutely amazing to go and see how different countries work. And I have to admit, I'll just touch on this in the Bosnia piece. We were working with 12 different nations, as part of the peacekeeping force there. But I came back and I was so proud, because it's not until you see other people and see how the other militaries work that you'd realise, bloody hell, we're actually pretty bloody good. You know, we're top of the pile. And I felt so proud that we're part of this organisation that, we lead the way in so many different things.
Yeah.
Not sure that answered your question.
No, it did. It's, you know, this is all about the different personalities and, you know, the different reasons for people to join up, and then the support that you've had recently to be able to put down those roots when you wanted to do so. You know, it's all about your own journey, isn't it? And your own, what you want to achieve out of your career. So, you know, you need to have an organisation that's going to support that on a personal level, which I think, you know, from all of your stories that we've heard so far, the RAF has absolutely done that for what you needed at the time. And
there was financial support as well, so buying your house as well. You know, I'm not sure that's you can get that anywhere else, but that's just another one of those benefits of joining the Air Force. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to hand back to you, Jess, now. I mean, it's been amazing listening to all of your journeys so far, but I know Jess wants to touch upon some more of the details of the application processes and training and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go back to Jess.
So Abby, I'm going to come to you, and just if we could just quickly touch upon a bit about training and how that looks. You mentioned earlier about chartership and things like that. So if you could give a quick overview of any kind of training you have experienced or others would experience. I'm guessing it's going to be vast.
Yeah, absolutely. So from being an engineer in the Air Force, as we know, because we're on a Gradcracker forum, is one of those roles that requires you to have a degree beforehand. But it doesn't stop there once you're in the Royal Air Force. The Air Force has lots of different ways in which it looks to develop you professionally as an engineer throughout the course of your career, and the whole way through the course of your career. Right from when you're coming in and doing your training. So you finish university and you come into the Air Force, you do a period of time training on how to be an officer and what the Air Force looks like and how that works. And then you go and do some more specialized training about how to be an engineer in the Air Force, and you learn about our specific aircraft that we operate, the fast jet aircraft, the transport aircraft, the helicopters, and you learn a bit about other vehicles and ground support equipment that we would use as well. Part of that course is accredited by certain universities, and it changes over time. We sometimes in the past we've been with one university, sometimes we'd go with another. And you can, after you finish your initial training course, engineering training course, you can do a bit of extra top-up work that uses workplace projects that you've done. You can write essentially a few essays, and you can actually get a separate standalone degree. So that's absolutely brilliant. So by the time you're 25, you can have 2 degrees within the Royal Air Force. The Air Force also operates schemes that allows you to do level 6 and level 7 degrees on a part-time basis and there's funding allotted for that as well. So that's master's level study part-time alongside your day job, and up to even including PhD study. I've got a colleague that's studying PhD in cyberspace communications alongside her day job. Because the Air Force recognises that actually by giving people these opportunities and allowing you to professionally develop, the breadth and the experience that you bring back to the role in the Royal Air Force is just absolutely, it can't be beaten anywhere else. And we also have very long established funding programs and associations with the Engineering Council and with the engineering institutions in the United Kingdom. So my degree, personally, mine was accredited by the Institute of Mechanical Engineers, and we have a really strong link with their military program as well. And they have a route in for engineer officers to go and set your interview, and they look at the experience that you've done in your service and map it across to civilian life. And you can be an incorporated engineer. So I did that actually when I was on maternity leave the second time, with my experience behind me working on the flying squadrons. And they also do the same to get you to chartered engineer as well. And because the Air Force recognises that we need to have people working at the same level because we work a lot with civilian companies. As Manjeet mentioned, a lot of his career centred around Bryce Norton. There, for example, we have lots and lots of civilian companies on base, for example, Boeing, and we need to be able to talk on parity with our counterparts. So there's a really broad range of professional
that
development
industry experience
opportunities
as well. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. That's a really good point. That.
Yeah.
Next, I want to talk a bit about, and I'm conscious of time as well, but it's such a massive thing. And again, Mark, we talk about it a lot. You know, when we're looking at the hub and the content for the hub, is how this kind of sports and society, like a networking element of it, and social elements of the RAF, and the opportunity for graduates, you know, and officers coming into the RAF, you know, whether, you know, Manjit, you mentioned about scuba diving and the opportunity, you know, to go and do that. So I just want to kind of make that really clear, because that's a huge thing. I think is a really unique for the RAF and really exciting. So has anyone in particular got a story or anything they want to share quickly about that kind of element of
do you want to know what I'm doing now? So basically, I used to, every station I went to, I saw what was going on and did something else there.
Okay.
So I skiing, scuba diving, and now, because I live near RAF Holton, they do microlight flying there. And so now I'm using because once you've done, I think it's 5 or 6 years in service, you get these enhanced learning credits. So I've used my enhanced learning credits to get my microlight pilot license.
Fantastic.
And it's taken a while, but it's another opportunity where you can now fly. And even with the prices of fuel going up, I think we're going to have to put our prices up again. But you can fly for about £55 an hour in microlights, and the planes that we fly, they're all brand new. They all have the latest safety gadgets on them, because we need to show that we are, you know, this is what you can do when we go into flying and meets and things like that. But there's so many different opportunities, and to be honest with you, on that side as well, just in a couple of weeks' time, because we maintain all our own aircraft, we're all either the technicians or we're engineering officers. I've got the chance to go and do an engine course, so I'll be maintaining the engines in the future as well. So we try and develop our people as well as part of the organisation.
Fantastic opportunity.
Just gonna add on to that really, and Manjit on all these stories. I thought he was going to come out of it himself, but we've got people in sport from the very beginning, absolute beginners that can go to training weekends, all the way up to, we have a Jamaican bobslayer in the Air Force. We've got Olympians. You know, people can get onto high performance athletes all the way through to elite athlete status. So they're actually going and competing. So right now we've got women from the RAF in the World Cup playing for England, Wales and Scotland. I think England's the only one left in a minute, but for the Rugby World Cup. Brilliant. There's opportunities there for everyone. There was a triathlon week. I'm into triathlon. There's a triathlon training camp at the weekend, and that was open from beginners all the way up to the high performing athletes.
Yeah, it's just the opportunities, as cheesy as it sounds, are endless. From bobsleighing to
scuba diving.
But what I will say is the people that we want are the people that will go out there and get them.
Yeah.
So these things aren't going to be handed to you, and this is the sort of person that we need to join up, is the person who goes out looking for it. And you know, the more proactive you are, the more things you'll get to do.
100%. Yeah, and that's a perfect way to kind of round it up. Mark, I'm just going to come to you quickly, just for any students that are thinking, oh, where do I sign up? I want to get involved. This sounds amazing. Just to kind of inform them on the application process, timelines, and any kind of next steps they need to know about. Okay,
so the Gradcracker site will have loads of information. I'd start there, and if you're still interested, go onto the RAF recruitment website, where it'll have, again, lots more information. It's got more information on about the application process, the eligibility requirements of what you need to join up. In terms of timelines, like I say, right now we are open for engineering, communication, electronics officers. We need some for early recruitment year next year. So we're talking May. So if you were to apply now, you could be in as early as May. With that, we're always looking to, with sponsorship, to get people in further down the line. So you could apply for your sponsorship and be further down the line and join up in 2025. Usually we say about 6 months from applying to getting a place, but it all depends on where the places are. Like I say, Aero Systems, if you're to apply for an Aero Systems job, you probably wouldn't be looking at getting a job until 2024. So like, if you really are interested in that and you're in that position for sponsorship, go down the sponsorship route. But yeah, go to the websites. They've got all the information on the steps you'll go through because of our few steps, including the interviews, medicals, fitness. So I'd start there. Go to Gradcracker Hub. Go to the RAF
all on there. It is, we said medical fitness and stuff like that. That's not too scary either. I've even looked into that. I thought, oh God, how fit do you have to be? But it's all quite, all right stuff. So definitely go and have a look at that. There's so much information on it. So just to round up, I just want to thank you all so much for your time and efforts. It's, really, really insightful to hear from you all this afternoon. And I really appreciate you all giving us the time to hear about your stories. So for the students that are still with us and listening, this session has been recorded and the recording will be live this afternoon on the RAF Hub and within the Gradcracker Career Centre. Remember, we'll also cut it up into little highlights as well. So, if you want to watch back, make sure you do. And just really for anyone that are thinking about taking the next steps, go and do it, because, like I say, I've worked with the RAF for the last 8 years now, and the experiences that I even get to hear from Mark and everyone else is just phenomenal. As we've mentioned, it's no ordinary job. So go on, have a good look, follow and get applying. Just want to highlight as well, next week we will be joined by MBDA. Again, that'll be Thursday, 2 p.m. So make sure you join us for that and we'll see you then. But everyone else, I just want to say thank you so much again, and we'll speak to you all soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
everyone.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.